Tomorrow, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver the party's deliver the January 8 statement at its 112th year anniversary at the Mbombela Stadium in Mpumalanga. The ruling party's leaders have for the past few days been crisscrossing the province, holding different programs and interacting with residents. Now, the main messages have been unity, renewal of the party and the achievements made in the previous years. The provincial visit received mixed reactions after the party's Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula made remarks at a rally on the former President Jacob Zuma's support for the newly formed Umkhonto We Sizwe party. But to talk more about the ANC's Mpumalanga visit and tomorrow's birthday celebrations, we're joined by our political reporter, of course, Samkele Maseko, who is already there. He's been there for a while in Mpumalanga, working on the build-up to what's said to be quite an important moment. Samkele, and good morning to you. I mean, it's been a very interesting week for the ANC in Mpumalanga. What's the reception been like from the branch members and residents?
Well, Leanne, what we are seeing is that the ANC is being received well by communities, but in some areas there were protests, particularly when you are heading towards Gwandebele, Wamhlanga area in Siabuswa, where the president of the ANC and Gwede Mantashe, the national chair, went there during the week. There were protests, people burning tires and blocking the roads due to the fact that they don't have electricity where they stay. Electricity has not yet been installed within those particular areas. And those are some of the issues that were being raised by communities. But in other areas, in the engagements that they've had with the youth is raising issues of job creation. Some community members, particularly if you go to an area like Barberton, where there's a lot of crime in that particular area, the ANC went there, the community was raising and saying that they are living in fear due to the number of crime that's in that specific area. And the issue of infrastructure, roads, that is being destroyed by the various coal trucks that are transporting coal within the province to the various coal-powered stations. So those are some of the issues that are being raised. To go to Lily Mine, the issue of the closure of that mine and the repatriation of those bodies of those who fell into that particular sinkhole in that particular mine. And you also go to issues pertaining to economic development and business opportunities within the area, which will be more ventilated later on this evening at the PPF colloquium, where the national chairperson of the ANC will be going, and also the gala dinner that will be held later tonight for the ANC's fundraising, where business people will also have an opportunity to engage with the various director generals, the various ministers, the president, the deputy president, and the national officials of the African National Congress later on this evening.
I mean, Samkele, this is it's a big one for the ANC. It certainly is. I mean, this statement is falling within an election year as well. And, you know, I imagine that this is going to be quite important for them, as much as they are going to be talking about policy and a roadmap of its annual moving forward and its annual programs. There obviously have been key messages that they are bringing and pushing out there to try and also convince voters that, you know, let's keep you, let's get what we need from you. What are those messages? What have they been saying?
Well, Leanne, this January 8 statement is pretty much of a review for the African National Congress. Just like they've undertaken a 30-year review of South Africa's democracy and government, the ANC is going to be underpinning its election campaign, basically raising the question, is 30 years enough in order to roll out infrastructure and to change South Africa's society as you go to what they call the NDR, the National Democratic Revolution, and building upon a democratic society, and saying that the apartheid government and oppression spanned over 100 years within South Africa, and that is not, 300 years, and that is not enough for any party which has only been in government for 30 years to change the entire society. And they will be underpinning the election on what they've done for the past 30 years in government, saying that they took over the country where only 45% to 50% of South Africans had access to electricity, saying now that over 95.3% of South Africans have access to electricity, water as well, access to jobs, social grants that are being rolled out, the safety net by government to poor South Africans who are on social grants at this point in time, which sits at a staggering 18 million South Africans. Many may ask the question, you can't gloat and boast about giving us grants to 18 million South Africans. What about job creation? But the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, yesterday saying that when they took over power, only 8 million South Africans were employed. But today, the employment statistics in South Africa sit at 16.8 million South Africans in formal and informal form of employment, saying that they have done relatively well despite the many challenges that are there, saying that they give out free social housing, which costs about 160,000 rand to build one RDP house, and they've rolled out over 3 million of those particular houses across the country to those whom are needy, and they are still going on that particular path. But also, many may critique the ANC and saying that you are building a welfare state, and that is not sustainable where it is consumption-minded and it is more expenditure on government rather than having less South Africans dependent on government for their livelihoods, just like you saw in countries such as China, where the ANC likes to mirror most of its government activities and its programs to the Chinese government.
So, Samkele, I'm going to ask you to be quick on these ones. Just two more questions I need to get in there. I mean, there is so much to talk about, but we've seen a lot of internal problems in the ANC. We've seen it forever, but I mean, let's just bring up these last couple of weeks where we've seen ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula coming under fire after remarks he made at the party's rally in Mpumalanga, saying they lied to Parliament and defended former President Jacob Zuma during the Umkhonto saga. What does this mean for him and for the party? I mean, I know the whole thing of renewal and unity is what's at the center of this, but this is not what they're showing, are they? But talk to us about what do you think is going to happen to him?
He's going to be in trouble within the National Executive Committee. Last night, the NEC met. They never dealt with this specific issue of Fikile Mbalula. They dealt with finalizing the January 8 statement and preparations for tomorrow's rally at the Mbombela Stadium. But there is a special National Executive Committee meeting that is planned for next week, where these issues are certainly going to be ventilated, where the ANC's National NEC, the National Executive Committee, resolved that they are not going to answer anything related to Zuma. They're just going to say they noted and leave it at that. They will only answer clearly and have a clear program of action of what they are going to do once they've sat down and they've analyzed everything as the National Executive Committee. So they're going to say Mbalula broke the ANC decision not to entertain this particular matter and has opened up a can of worms. So essentially, he's in trouble. They will not remove him, but they will reprimand him.
Okay, and perhaps maybe just keep him quiet for a little bit and not so exposed and speaking so much. Just finally, I mean, and an important thing to talk about, because the party's former president, Jacob Zuma, was also in Mpumalanga this week. He's been addressing supporters of his of the newly formed Umkhonto We Sizwe political party. And it is quite confusing because he's still an ANC member, but he is pushing for this party. And you know, this obviously, I imagine, is going to have an impact on the ANC. And has it had an impact on the ANC events in the province? And then perhaps wrap it up with what we're expecting today. Ace Magashule joining forces and also working with Umkhonto We Sizwe. That's sort of what's rumbling around at the moment.
What we do know is that the ANC has and is shaken by the formation of Umkhonto We Sizwe. We don't know to what extent it will have on the African National Congress, particularly in a province like KwaZulu-Natal, where they are gaining traction and they are gaining serious numbers from the African National Congress, particularly from those who are disgruntled on how the party has turned out in the past few years since Cyril Ramaphosa took power. With former President Jacob Zuma in Mpumalanga, he's had I won't say a huge dent, but if you go to areas such as Piet Retief in Umkhonto, which is closer and is the border between KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga, closer to areas such as Pongolo, many people have said that Jacob Zuma is going to mobilize in areas that are largely condensed with Zulu-speaking people, Nguni-speaking people, whom will align with his political party. They say if you go to areas in Gauteng, such as Tembisa, such as in the Vaal, and you go to KwaZulu-Natal, he's been unable to make strong inroads in all other provinces of the country, the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, Free State, and all other areas, like he's done in KwaZulu-Natal, where there's been a strong influx and a strong interest in people joining MK. So, but the true proof of the pudding on how he's done and how much he's hurt the ANC will be determined on election when the results are officially declared within the country. Until then, it's only a propaganda game where people will say Umkhonto We Sizwe now has 6 million members. It's now the biggest political formation in the country. This and that, but they are unverified. With Ace Magashule and Jacob Zuma, last I checked, that relationship was very frosty, very cold, we don't know if they've kissed and made up.
Politics, Samkele. Only you can handle and report on it the way you do. Samkele Maseko, thank you. Our political reporter talking to us about the ANC's visit to Mpumalanga this week. And of course, the party's 112th birthday celebrations that will be held at Mbombela Stadium tomorrow, and that January 8th statement that will be delivered by the President.